This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, so let's just kick off this session. So thank you, Giridhar, for joining us on Wetesterr channel. So we are privileged to have you on our new kind of stuff which we have just started last month. So as you are a automation ninja, which I can say I have been following you since a lot of years, and I have been very admire of your work which you have done for the community and stuff. So we are reaching you, and in future as well, we are trying to reach you for another cool stuffs which you have already done in past. So over to you, Giridhar, if I can.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Banko, for inviting me over to this particular forum. And it's my pleasure to be, be a mentor for this particular topic because it's a topic that I've been working for past 8 years, and I just wanted to express my personal experience with the Gherkin writing and BDD, what are all the things that I've faced. So my name is Giridhar Rajkumar, and I'm a test automation consultant. So I've been in this industry for more than a decade now, and I've been working with the test automation and a little bit of development work as well. So I write a blog about many different tools, especially from the testing perspective, and write reviews about those particular tools and the features that are available as part of that particular tool. So this is my blog, learndevtesttops.com, where you can just go and see. And I also founded this particular website called the testershub.info, which is especially made made for the community, where there are hundreds of test automation tools and other testing related tools as well. And since it is a community website, many people will be able to give inputs about different tools that are available, and you will be able to get more knowledge about it. So in case if you would like to follow, I'm on Twitter on VGRK2017 is my Twitter handle. You can just follow me there. Or in case if you're a LinkedIn fan, I'm on LinkedIn as well. So you can just search for my name, Giridhar Rajkumar, and you can just connect with me. And I have my own GitHub where I have just posted all the examples and all the codes that I've been using it for different forums. And you can just go through that particular GitHub and you can just fork it if you want. So having said this, we will directly get into today's agenda. So today's agenda is going to be more focusing from the BDD perspective and the Gherkin writing perspective. So initially we will kickstart with knowing what exactly BDD is all about. And then we will slightly get into what is the Three Amigos session and how a typical traditional workflow works and how a BDD will fit into your particular agile team. And then we will slightly get into the Gherkin writing. We will just try to see the best practices that we need to follow in order to write effective Gherkins so that it will be more useful to any type of stakeholders that are there in the team, And we will talk a little bit more about misunderstandings about BDD and Gherkins as well. The reason why I just wanted to insist on this particular topic is many organizations within the globe has started moving towards a transformation phase. So that transformation can include anything that is available as part of today's trend. It can be digital, or it can be QE transformation, or it can be DevOps transformation. It can be anything actually, but when it comes to BDD transformation, right, or QE transformation, we need to understand the facts from BDD and Gherkin writing perspective, and that's the reason why I just wanted to spend some more time on that particular misunderstandings part. And then we will get into Cucumber for BDD. It's kind of a demo that I have planned as of now. We are not going to get in depth about that particular topic because I have already published a course in Test Automation University. Just in case, if you really want to know about Cucumber with Java, you can directly get into this particular course. Register yourself, and it is 100% free. You don't have to pay for it. So you will get to know about Cucumber and its features with respect to BDD. And then we will slightly get into automated acceptance tests as well, which will be coming as part of the demo itself, where you will get a clear-cut idea about how you can write the the Gherkin scenarios and the feature files as well. So having said this, we will directly get into what is BDD. So basically speaking, BDD is behavior-driven development actually. So basically what I have seen is whenever I talk to people about BDD, one thing that they will say is BDD is business-driven development. So there is a small misunderstanding on that part as well. So it is behavior-driven development, and it fits directly within your agile program actually. So say for example, you are working for a team and that team is adapting an agile way of work culture actually. So what BDD does is it just acts as a catalyst for you. So when I say catalyst, it means that it is going to help you in speeding up the process of requirements gathering actually. So say for example, you have a number of scenarios, and those particular scenarios are written in a simple steps or something like that. But again, the problem is like you will not be able to understand from the tester's perspective and the developer's perspective. The reason is the mindset between a developer and the tester is totally different actually when it comes to a requirement understanding perspective. That's where BDD is something that it talks common language between all stakeholders, be it whether a developer or a business analyst or a product owner or a UX designer or a tester, name them. Everything will be written in a common language that everyone will be able to understand. And it is always written from the business perspective actually. So like I said earlier, since it is behavior driven development, right, we always think from the behavior of that particular application. So say for example, if I give an input to this particular form, what is my outcome? So when I say outcome, it's going to be end of the day, it's going to be a business outcome, right? So that is how we are going to focus. So we are going to focus mostly from the behavior perspective of the application. And then, like I said earlier, since it is going to be a common language, it should be mostly domain, domain language actually. DSL is what we call domain specific language, which is going to be used by many domain experts, testers, and developers as well, so that the communication between them will be very easy to understand for that particular requirement. Let's keep this in mind that BDD acts as a catalyst for agile, and it is a simple common language which is going to be there between different set of stakeholders. And one thing I wanted to tell is there is a common myth that says that BDD is test automation. So there are lots and lots of projects where I have involved personally. Many people are stating that BDD is a test automation. But we need to think that BDD is not a test automation. It is again a development model that can be plugged into your agile software development process to make things much faster and crystal clear actually. So going forward, if someone says that BDD is a test automation, please tell them that it is not a test automation tool or it is not a test automation strategy. It is a development process, right? So, and the next one is, let's slightly see about the traditional workflow. Let's try to understand more from how BDD is getting differed from a traditional workflow where many teams are currently following as well. This is how it happens, right? Even this happens in Agile as well, right? This is not only specific to a waterfall model, but it is happening in Agile as well, where BDD is not being adapted, right? So the business owner first calls the business analysts and he says what he wants. So say, for example, like the product owner can be our customer, right? So the customer calls our business analyst and says, hey, I want to develop this particular feature, okay? And he gives a basic requirements from the customer's perspective actually. And the business analyst's job is to think about what has to be developed, and the business analyst will write something called as a HLD or LLD or a technical document or whatever it is that says specifications on that particular module, what customer is expecting us. Now, what happens is after deriving that particular documentation or the requirements, the business analyst will put it in a place probably like a SharePoint or a Jira or something like that, where the testers will take that particular requirement and then start writing the test cases, where the developer will take the requirement and start developing that particular application. This is the traditional workflow, right? This is particularly common, and this is how many teams are currently functioning. But here is the challenge actually. So there can be a miscommunication or misunderstanding happening with the requirements in 3 different levels. So we have definitely we would have seen it in our practical work itself, that there might be many miscommunications about the particular requirements, where we need to go to the business analyst and then ask him or her about what is that particular requirement is all about. And the same requirement, the developer would have taken it in a different perception and he would have developed a different application. But the business document will be talking a different one. That's where the gap between the developer, the business analyst, and the tester comes in place actually. And end of the day, we develop an application that is really not be useful or really not as per as per the requirement from the customer himself actually. So when we are trying to do this, and the end users will not be happy about our application, and then starts our problem actually. So this is a common problem that is occurring in this particular workflow kind of a structure actually, right? But let's see what is going to happen in BDD once teams started adapting this particular development process. Now what happens is, of course, the business owner will call the business analyst and he says what he wants. Simple. But here's a twist actually. So the business analyst will not be writing the requirement document. So the business analyst will call for a meeting with the tester, developer, or probably the UX designer, or even the product owner, and then discuss about that particular requirement, what the business owner was talking about actually. So basically speaking, this particular meeting is what we call it as 3 amigos session. So I'm repeating it again. The business analyst will be calling the developer and the tester of the particular module and sit with them in a table, and they will just start talking about what exactly that has to be developed. Great, wonderful. As part of that particular 3 amigos session, there comes the outcome of acceptance criteria. So this is the place where our Gherkins comes into picture. So this is the place where we need to talk more about Gherkins, and not from the testing perspective. We are not talking Gherkins from the testing perspectives as of now. We are talking only from the requirements gathering perspective. Now, great. So the requirements or the acceptance criteria are written in the format of Gherkins, which are nothing but given, when, and then format, which we will be looking into about them in the future slides. Now what happens is, since the developer and the tester were involved in writing the requirements, there is a very, very minimum possibility of having misunderstanding of the particular requirement. So that's how this particular BDD workflow is helping the entire agile team to be more robust and come up with a and reduce many misunderstanding and misconceptions about that particular requirement actually. Now this is what we call it as the BDD workflow or the BDD process. Then comes the test automation part. That is the place where we use tools like Cucumber or any other tools like Serenity or something like that to write all our given when and thens in an automated fashion to write our to test our acceptance criteria, whether it is working or not. And there is also one myth that people will say that I'm writing BDD tests. Please tell them that not to use a word called BDD tests, because it is not called as BDD tests. It is called as automating the acceptance criteria. So there is nothing called as BDD tests, guys. So just in case if someone is talking to you about it, please do let them know that there is nothing called as BDD tests. Great, wonderful. Now what happens is, once the acceptance criteria is automated, then comes the reporting part like Cucumber reports or something, which elaboratively shows exactly what has been developed and tested as well, right? There is something called as living documentation, which we will definitely see in the future in the upcoming slides, where we need to insist about using this particular living documentation tools like Pickles, because for the non-technical people, they will be able to understand what has been automated and what is there as part of that particular application as well. Great. Now let's get into Gherkins actually. So this is something that comes in this particular phase, guys. It will definitely come in test automation as well, but majorly it comes in this particular part where we will be able to write the Gherkins actually. Now let's see what is this particular Gherkin actually. So in a nutshell, I can say that Gherkin is a set of grammar rules that are used to structure the requirements. So when I say requirements, it is the acceptance criteria that I'm talking about. So instead of writing the requirement in a very elaborated English statements, try to split it or try to cut it down into this particular Gherkin format called given, when, and then formats. As simple as that actually. So it is something that we need to use 5 different annotations that are available, and then we can write our requirements. Then it is a simple English text language actually. So when it comes to the test automation perspective, what we are trying to do here is we write the requirements in the Gherkin format, right? So we are going to use the same set of Gherkin formatted requirements to automate our particular acceptance tests as well, right? So that is where tools like Cucumber comes into place, which we will see in the demo part for sure. And then comes the documentation of the system behavior. This is where I was talking about the living documentation. So living documentation, again, I'm just trying to elaborate it in a different, elaborate it. So when it comes to the living documentation, it is our duty as a team to make sure that any requirements that we have built is present as part of one single document. When I say one single document, say for example, if you're going to work with hundreds of stories, okay, you have worked for 10 sprints and there are hundreds of stories and you have automated probably thousands of acceptance tests, which is great. But if you want to see in one place what is that has been automated or what is that has been developed, that is where this particular living documentation comes into picture. So basically, whenever you use BDD, try to use this particular living documentation as well, because this is going to be the Bible of your requirements. So let me just show you a simple example of this, hang on. Okay, so Pickles is one of the famous living documentation tool that has been used across many organizations to track what has been automated and what has been there in that particular application. Because down the line, probably after 10 or 15 sprints, right, if you want to know about what exactly that has been automated or developed, you don't have to go to Jira and start looking for it actually. Rather, you can just directly get into this Pickles HTML document and you will be able to see what exactly has been developed. So on the left hand side, you will be able to see all the features that has been developed. This is just an example. So these are the ones that has been automated and these are the test data that has been used. You can just keep track of everything here, which eventually becomes the guide for your application on what has been developed and tested, right? Great. Now, let's get into a little bit of Gherkin best practices actually. So there is something called as annotations, which we religiously need to follow in order to write an effective Gherkin scenario. So there are totally 5 different annotations: given, when, then, and but. So basically speaking, given is used when as an initial context of the particular test, what is it we are going to do, and then when is an action that has been triggered for that particular event, and then is the outcome of that particular event that we have triggered. And then and but are optional, but again and can be used to combine 2 different events or an outcome as well. And but is rarely used, but again it is used for negative outcome, saying that but it should not be present, something like that actually. And we should always keep one thing in mind. This is something that is one best practice that I want to insist. We always write Gherkin scenarios from a developer or a tester's perspective. So say for example, I have seen people writing Gherkin scenarios like given I'm a tester, given I'm a developer, something like that actually. So keep in mind, it is not about you guys, it is always about the user who's going to use that particular application. So whenever you are going to write your requirements during your 3 Amigos session, please tell your BA or please write in a format that you are writing it from the user's perspective actually. Just put the user's shoes and write the requirements so that it will be easy for you guys to understand later perspective as well. Then comes the golden rules. So this is something that we need to keep in mind whenever we are writing the acceptance tests in the Gherkin format. So basically speaking, I have seen in many places that there will be a common scenario that will be derived by the business analyst during the 3 Amigos session, and the testers who are going to automate those particular acceptance scenarios, they will be taking all those they will be writing multiple scenarios based out of that one particular scenario which is there in the acceptance criteria, which is absolutely okay, which is great. I'm not going to tell that it's not a best practice. You can write it, but again, keep in mind that whenever you're writing your Gherkin scenarios, you're supposed to keep these rules in mind. So whenever you're writing a scenario, make sure that there is only one given, one when, and one then statement, not more than that actually. And then you should have maximum of 2 and statements, steps. The reason behind this one is maximum you should be having 5 steps in one particular scenario. You might be asking, Giri, how is it possible for me to write an end-to-end scenario in this case within 5 lines of 5 steps in fact? So if you remember, that's where the concept of page objects and everything comes into picture actually. I'm talking about automation now. So that is where the concept of page objects and reusable steps, everything will come into picture, where you can reuse those particular steps. Now, say for example, from the business perspective, I can say that let's take Facebook example, right? So we log into Facebook, we just click on that particular, we just wanted to post an update, right? So we are going to give some text, and we are going to give post, and we are going to confirm. Okay, so there are 3 or 4 steps we need to do. But in this case, what we need to do is we can just split it, or we can just make it into one particular scenario, saying that given I am a valid Facebook user, when I try to post an update, then I should be able to post successfully. That's it. Or you don't have to write like given I enter username, given I enter password. No. Please don't do that actually, because those are all just test steps what you are following actually. Those are all not behavior of that particular application. Since we are using BDD, behavior driven development, our scenarios should also be from the behaviors perspective. Don't get confused. We will definitely see a couple of examples in the further slides where you will be able to understand more what I'm trying to tell you guys. But as of now, for writing Gherkins, keep in mind about these 3 golden rules you have to religiously follow to make sure that your Gherkin is much effective and business oriented. Okay, let's start writing a feature file actually. So basically speaking, it is not a hard and fast rule that you should do automation. You should write all these kind of requirements in the feature file itself. There might be a situation where you just have to write your Gherkin scenarios in your Jira itself as an acceptance criteria. So when you're writing it, you need to follow this particular structure actually. So at least with my experience, where I have worked with multiple customers in UK and Europe, this particular format has been used by many organizations, and they have told that they are getting very good output or outcomes of this particular best practice that they are following actually. What you need to do is very simple. Start writing your particular feature in the acceptance criteria, saying that this is my feature. And then start writing the feature injection or the feature description. So say, for example, what is the particular feature is going to do? And then start writing multiple scenarios for that particular feature. So you can say that, write scenario and give a scenario title for that. And then give, if you see here, you will be able to see only one given, one when, and then, and 2 ands here actually. So you will be able to see what exactly these steps are doing here, where you will be able to understand more how to write a scenario effectively. Don't worry, I will just share this particular slide, or I have written a book on how to write Gherkins as well. I'll just share the PDF after this particular session, where Ankur will be able to share it with you guys, so that you will be able to understand more from the best practices of writing Gherkins as well. Right now, whenever we are writing Gherkins, we need to consider a couple of artifacts or a couple of features that are available as part of Gherkins. One such thing is the comments. So say, for example, if you are going to write a big scenario, an end-to-end scenario, right, which includes almost like 15-20 steps, What you need to do is try to reduce it into 5 from a behavior or a business perspective. And in case if you think that you need to give more details about that particular scenario, you can use comments like this actually. Use hash and give comments and explain what is the particular scenario is all about, and try to reduce number of lines in the scenarios, because this will help in understanding what exactly the particular test does and what exactly the particular scenario is all about actually. So whenever you are writing a scenario, or whenever you're writing a feature file, or whenever you're writing a feature, try to use comments to give more explanation or more details about that particular feature. Then comes the background. So say for example, there might be multiple scenarios. So if you take here as an example, we are going to use Google search actually. So all I'm going to do is like I'm going to launch the Google search page and going to enter something called as Apple and search for the results. Likewise, I'm going to again launch Google search page and going to search for a string called bike, and I'm going to see all the results that are populating for bike. If you see here, the step that we are going to do here, a common step, right, that we are going to use for these two scenarios is launching the launching the Google page, right? So we can put something like that in a tag called background. So basically speaking, it comes in a sequence actually. So if you have a couple of reusable steps, you can directly put everything in the background, and you will be able to make use of it from the scenario perspective itself. So when we are executing our acceptance tests, what happens is whenever this particular scenario is going to execute, it searches for the background, and first it executes that particular sequence of steps, and then it comes to the scenario. Likewise, it happens for n number of scenarios that are there as part of the particular feature file. So it's always a good practice to have backgrounds where you put all the commonly reusable steps. And then comes the scenario outline. So this is something I really like, and this is something that we really need to adapt in writing the Gherkins more in a more optimized way actually. The reason is, if you see in the previous example, what we have seen is we are using the same steps again and again with different parameters, right? So Apple, when I search for Apple, when I search for bike, and the result should be populating with Apple, and the result should be populating with bike. If you see here, these steps are reusable, but the parameters are different. So that's where the concept of scenario outline comes into picture. So basically speaking, whenever you're writing a scenario, without any parameters, you will be writing with a tag called a scenario. But if your scenario is going to have more than one parameter, you can make use of this particular tag called scenario outline, which will automatically be recognized by tools like Cucumber, thinking that it is going to be a parameterized test. So the parameterized tests or the parameters has to be given within this particular tag called as examples. So say for example, if you have a search item that you want to put, you can just put it under here so that it will be able to identify and tell you what exactly that particular test is all about, or it executes the tests twice with two different parameters and gives you the output. Actually, I did a mistake here. It should be search string, but I have given search item here. It is my bad. I will just correct it next time. So it should be search string over here so that you will be able to understand what exactly this particular test is all about. And then comes the tags actually. So tags is one thing that we really need to use when it comes to Gherkins guys, because that is the one that is going to split, or that is the one that is going to help us out in understanding the different types of tests we have. So say for example, we have 100 scenarios. Let's take an example. We have 100 scenarios, and those particular 100 scenarios are developed in a sequence of sprints, right? So from sprint 1 to sprint 10, we have hundreds of scenarios. Now, how will you identify that particular scenario has been developed in which sprint? You can just make use of the tags for that actually. So here what you can do is just above your scenario, you can just put at, and you can directly put what is the particular, when is the particular scenario has been drafted. Or you can also tell whether that particular scenario has to be executed as part of your smoke test or regression test or a manual test actually. So why are we giving this particular tags? So these particular tags will be very, very useful for you when it comes to your CI/CD pipeline environment. So say for example, when there is a build that has been completed, and if you want to execute only the smoke tests to identify whether all the tests, all the smoke tests are executing fine, you need to trigger only this, you need to trigger those scenarios based on the tags only. So it's always better to start practicing from the day one when you're writing your particular Gherkins using this particular tags, so that it will be easy for the developers to, the DevOps engineers to execute the test cases in a sequence when it comes to the continuous testing infrastructure, right? Then comes a couple of best practices. This is what I was talking about just before a couple of slides. So let's see a couple of wrong things and what is the right way of writing it as well. So given I am logged in, when I delete a post on the blog, then I should see a successful deleted message. What's wrong with this? If you see here, we are not telling who we are actually. Given I am logged in, who am I? Right? We are not telling that we are saying whether it is a user or someone actually. So we have to make sure that we have to explicitly tell who's the user who's going to do that particular event, right? And the second one is, given I am a tester, like I said earlier, it should not be specific to the stakeholder of that particular team. Rather, it should be from the end user's perspective. So then comes the right way of writing is, given the administrator is logged in, when the user deletes a post on the blog, then a successful deleted message should be displayed. So this talks more from a business perspective, and this talks more from the domain specific language perspective as well. And whenever you write your scenario, make sure that you're writing in this particular format so that it will be easy for any kind of people to understand the requirements. So say for example, this particular Gherkin writing, again I'm insisting, it is not specific to testers. It is specific to everyone in your team to understand what exactly the particular requirement is all about. So try to use domain specific language always to make sure the Gherkins are written effectively. And we'll see another example actually. So I've seen so many people using this kind of a scenario, right? So if you see here, people have started giving URLs actually in the given statement. So let us not have this kind of practice giving the URLs and other things within this particular scenario. Anything that is more technical. So say for example, even if you take in the next slide, we are going to talk about the providing the locators of that particular component via Gherkin scenarios. This is also not acceptable, because try to think down the line, if you have hundreds of scenarios in this particular format, right, where you have all the locators defined in your particular Gherkins, and if there is a change in the locator that is going to happen down the line, you cannot go and change for each and every scenario that is there as part of your framework, right? So it's always better not to give all the locators from your Gherkins, rather just put it in your page objects or something where you can just go and reuse it over there itself. Again, I'm just talking from Java perspective at the moment because I see many people are using Java. So that's the reason why I'm just talking from Java perspective. But again, if you are using other languages or other way of, other design patterns, you can definitely go and make use of the reusability component accordingly. So try not to use in this way, guys, so that it will be easy for you to understand more from this perspective, from the DSL perspective. And then if you again, I just wanted to reiterate on the BDD misunderstandings what we have. Testers should write GWTs. Absolutely not. Absolutely not in all cases. But like I said earlier, the GWTs or the acceptance criteria has to be defined during the 3 Amigos session, and it has to be written by the business analyst. Down the line, during the sprint, the testers can take that particular acceptance criteria and then split it into multiple scenarios. That is absolutely fine, but make sure that those scenarios that the testers are writing are reviewed by the business analysts, and it has been informed to the developers as well, so that that miscommunication will not happen again here. And then business driven development, no, it's behavior driven development. And Gherkins are not your test steps. Again, I just wanted to iterate this particular this particular point. Gherkin steps are not your test steps. So when I say test steps, we all might have worked with waterfall method for sure, where we will be writing test step, what is the accepted expected behavior, and what is the actual behavior, right? So we will be writing like given I launch the application, given I enter the URL, or given I enter my username when I click on this particular button. So all those kind of things are test steps. Whereas if you take Gherkins, we are not going to talk about test steps. We are going to talk about behavior of the particular application. So please keep in mind, never use your test steps over here. When I say test steps, you can use to some extent, but make sure you're not exceeding the 3 golden rules that we discussed earlier. And BDD means test automation. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So in case if your customer or someone is going to come and tell you that write your BDD in a test automation format, no. Or write your test automation scripts in a BDD format, no. It's absolutely not. We are not supposed to tell them that way. Rather, tell them that BDD is a development process, and we need to tell it in the acceptance tests perspective, actually, right? I'm insisting all these things because these are the common issues that we have seen with multiple organizations, at least with my personal experience. And I just wanted to give more information about this particular Gherkin writing in this particular forum so that you will be able to understand more and you can just make use of this very effectively in your current project as well. Now, how can we achieve this particular Gherkins actually? So Gherkin scenarios can be written using tools like Cucumber, which is, which again can be used with Eclipse, and we can just write it with a Chrome add-on called as Tidy Gherkin as well. So whenever you're writing, whenever there is a non-technical person, right? Say for example, business analyst. If he or she wants to write the Gherkin scenarios in a more tidy way, they can use this particular Tidy Gherkin Chrome add-on, and they can start writing that particular scenario so that they will be highlighted with what are all the different steps and what are all the different annotations, so that they will be able to understand more on how they can write it very effectively. And then, of course, for testers and developers like you and me, we can use Cucumber, which is, again, we can add it as a plugin for our Eclipse and start writing the feature files and make use of it for the reusable steps and automating the acceptance tests as well. And of course, Pickles, I'm again insisting about living documentation here. Probably for 1 or 2 months, you will not be able to understand why exactly we need to use living documentation. But for sure, down the line, you will be able to understand the importance of living documentation. So please start using living documentation from the day 1 itself. And from the technology perspective, of course, we use Java, we can use C#, we can use Ruby, we can use Python. I didn't put it over here. There are a number of languages that does support BDD way of writing the acceptance tests. But again, it is up to you guys to decide which language you want. And based on that, you can just download the Cucumber versions and start using it. And apart from these languages, the frameworks like WebDriver.io and Cypress also supports Cucumber in an effective way, where you can just quickly install those Cucumber packages and start making use of it while writing the Cucumber scenarios. And in case if you really want to know more about Cucumber with Java or JavaScript, I strongly suggest you to go through the Test Automation University, where I have done a course on Cucumber with Java, and you can just learn about Cucumber's features for writing effective Gherkins and write automated tests as well, automated acceptance tests as well. And if you are a JavaScript fan, and we have a Cucumber with JavaScript as well, where you can just go and learn about how you can make use of Cucumber with JavaScript. And for Python as well, Andrew Knight has given a very good course on BDD with Python, where you can just go and start learning it and make use of it to the maximum. Enough of all these slides. Now let's get into Eclipse and see how we can draft that particular project, and how we can write a feature file, and how we can write a step definition, and how we can execute it, right? Now, I have already written a couple of scenarios just to save some time now, so that it will be easy for us to understand more. So if you see here, this is our Cucumber, so this is our Eclipse, and we have written the scenarios or the features in a feature file, where you can just put it under resources, or you can just customize it however you want. And this is the way that we need to use. If you remember in the slides, we have seen a feature file structure, and we have followed it religiously here to make sure that this particular feature file is adhering to the best practices that we have seen till now. So write it something like this, guys, where you can just write it something in simple domain-specific language for a Parabank application. This is a simple login test where I'm just logging in into the Parabank application from the login page by entering a valid credentials and then checking whether I'm in the overview page and logging out automatically. Now, each and every step here, what we have written, has to be mapped to a technical function called the step definitions actually. So if you see here, I have written the step definition as well over here. So this is the particular step definition for this particular step. Given I am in the login page of the Parabank application. So if you see here, this is the test function that has to be used for the automation purpose when we are executing it from the feature file directly, so that our automated tests will be executed. So we need to write all the step definitions over here. But again, we can also, make use of the features of page objects and everything down the line, where I have explained very clearly in that particular course, where you can just go through it and you will get maximum benefit out of it for sure. And just for this demo purpose, I've just written all these steps in a very high level so that you will be able to understand what exactly it does. And then this is the basic feature file, and this is the little bit of advanced feature file where I have used all the scenario outline and parameters and everything over here. So now to run this particular test, we have something called as runner class actually. So where you can just make use of this one and write all those, copy paste this particular Cucumber options in your test and execute it directly so that it executes all the tests that are there as part of the feature files. So now quickly execute and see how it is getting executed. So I'm using JUnit, but you can of course use TestNG or something like that. So if you see here, it just launched the Parabank application and it just logged in and logged out. As simple as that actually. Great. That's it. That's a one simple scenario that we have done, but you can make use of this one to write your end-to-end tests or a chunk of tests that you want based on your particular requirement, and then you can execute it directly from your CI/CD pipeline as well. Now, after executing this, we will be given a test report actually. So there are multiple Cucumber reports we can plug in, like Allure report or Pretty report or something like that. But I've used Pretty report here, where you will be able to see this particular beautiful graph, so beautiful chart, where exactly it says what is, if you dig in, you will be able to see different steps that got executed and what is the status of that particular step and each and everything, and the overall duration, and what is the current status as well, along with the date and everything. I've used the older report, but I haven't used the latest one. So you can make use of this particular plugin to get this particular HTML report, so that you can make sure that this has been, this is plugged in with your CI/CD environment or Jenkins or something like that, where you can just go and see the reports directly from there. And and I hope this was useful for you guys, and I'm open for the questions now.
Yeah, I think it was a wonderful session, Giridhar. So I think I have one question. So if you can elaborate then pickle stuff. So is that open source or something we have to pay it?
No, it is open source actually. It is completely open source, where you can just make use of this particular tool, and it is built for .NET. But again, you can make use of this one for any languages. All we need to specify is we just have to point out the features folder where you have all your feature files located, and it automatically grabs and everything. It automatically grabs and puts everything in one HTML file and gives it to you. And second thing is, you can also integrate it with your Cucumber test results as well, where you will be able to see the test results for the latest run, integrated with pickles as well.
And so also, does it pick the latest changes as well? Like whatever we suppose I refactor one Gherkin, so does it automatically pick, or I have to do some updates in pickle as well?
No, it automatically picks. So say for example, I have my feature file here, Okay, and I'm going to change something over here. Okay, let's say for example, like when I enter invalid credential, something like this. So what Pickles does exactly is, irrespective of what is it you have changed here, for each and every run, it directly takes the feature files that are located under resources and compiles it and gives it to you as a HTML file.
Yeah, so that is something interesting I haven't explored. So thanks for that. I'll definitely explore, because right now in our current project we are struggling to maintain those Gherkins. So that is something
Definitely,
very
yes.
nice. I think we are able to implement that.
Definitely, because think and see the scenario. So down the line, your business analyst, if he wants to know what exactly that is there as part of the requirements, you cannot, set up Eclipse. You cannot pull the code and give it to them and ask them to go through each and every feature file, right? Rather, giving it in this
Yeah,
particular format will be more useful for those kind of non-technical people, actually.
non-technical. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Right.
Yeah, guys, anybody have questions? We have open
Yeah,
Q&A now.
Giridhar, I have a question. So
Yeah.
basically, I have not used Cucumber much. So I just wanted to know, like after the execution, the report you have shown, right? The HTML report which was generated. What is the data source for that? Like the HTML is fetching the data from where about the execution?
So basically speaking, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. So basically speaking, what exactly happens here is we have to install something called as Cucumber HTML reports. Okay. So it is there as part of your plugin itself. All you need to do is just use this particular plugin and install this particular dependency over here, and automatically you're executing it from the command line, right? So say for example, if you want to execute it like mvn verify, so automatically it executes your test cases and it just puts all your reports in this particular directory as a JSON, and then that JSON will be taken care again by the Cucumber, and it constructs this particular folder on the left hand side. What you're seeing is the HTML report, and this is what I have funded for you actually. So everything is automated and it make uses of surefire reports. So all you need to do is just use this particular dependency and this particular build execution tag, and it just automatically does it for you actually.
Okay, no, basically the question what I have is like, let's say after the Cucumber execution, I want to create a custom report. Okay, so I do not want to go ahead with this HTML reports, whatever is there. I want to create a PDF report out of this JSON result. So that is where all the data is present, right? That cucumber.json.
Right. Cucumber JSON is the place where everything is located. What you can write, what you can do is you can make use of this particular JSON and you can customize it however you want actually.
Yeah, okay. So I got my answer. So this was like I was looking for this cucumber.json. Thanks.
Wonderful. No worries at all.
First of all, thank you so much for giving this fruitful session, and especially this living live documentation part is really interesting one. Good fit. I mean, you definitely explore this. However, the few questions. First thing, as you said, like for the reporting, only Maven verify is working for that. I tried with the Maven install, it is not working. So, if this only Maven verify is the command for which we have to rely for this reporting?
No, it depends on what is it we are trying to give here actually. So I have given the verify here. Are you using this particular plugin?
Yeah, I'm using this particular plugin, and I have configured the HTML report in the Annotation as well.
Okay. So I have given here verify, and that's the reason why I'm just using mvn verify. But again, you can just put test also here, and then from the command line you can just execute it accordingly.
Perfect. Thank you. And another question is like on a best practice, as you have mentioned, like we have to use only one for the given, one for the when and then. What is my understanding for this? Like we are using given for the prerequisite and when for particular conditions or actions, and then we are using for the validation. Let's say if I have a multiple steps, including in my scenario, as an example, I'm going to book the train ticket from the IRCTC. First, I'll go on the homepage of URL of the IRCTC, and then I have to start the booking. I'll go on a train selection page, or after that, after giving that fourth destination, I'll be on train selection page. After the train selection, I have to give all the traveler information and then to the payment page or confirmation. So likewise, it is required a multiple actions which can be combined with the when, and multiple validations is also required, which can be clubbed with the then. So then in that case, what would be your suggestion of how, because what is my understanding, I have to use multiple when and multiple then along with the multiple connector as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's really an interesting question actually. So what I would do in your case is definitely I will make use of the page objects, where I'll just put all the locators and what are all the actions that I need to do as part of that particular page. So let's say, for example, in IRCTC ticket booking, right, we are going through 4 different pages, right? I'll be having 4 different page objects, and I'll be writing my scenario something like this. Given I am in the given I have logged in into IRCTC as a valid user, when I try to do a booking, then I should be able to do the booking successfully. That's it, as simple as that. Now, what I'll be doing inside the step definition matters a lot, because I totally agree that we need to have multiple steps and multiple validations, everything here. But when it comes to Gherkins, in the front feature file itself, you can just write it in a very simple English statement, and inside in the step definitions, you can just call the page objects accordingly and do the workflow there itself, so that the Gherkin scenario, what we are trying to talk about is like, given I'm in the I'm in the IRCTC homepage with the valid credentials or something like that, right? You can just put everything in step definitions so that your Gherkin looks very clean and tidy. And inside your step definitions, you're calling all the page objects in a sequence to make sure your entire scenario is getting fit over there.
Yeah, but how the all the stakeholders will get to know about what exactly, what kind of the validation we are performing, because all the validation part will be taken care under the step definition only, right?
But so what? Yeah.
I believe.
So,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
No. What I was saying is, I totally agree with you, validations and everything. So if you really want to log a validation, right, that this has to be there as part of a particular step, I think there are a couple of logging features that are available. You can directly put the log and it will be coming in the report as well. You can customize it. But again, it is a very well known fact that if you're doing an assertion, it is not really required for us to explicitly tell for a positive validations in your report. Only when the validation is failing, then we have to report it. By default, Cucumber, whenever you're trying to do this particular validation, if it fails, the report, it directly says that in this particular step it is failing. So it will be easy for you to debug into that particular page objects directly and identify where it is failing actually.
Perfect. Apart from this, when we talk about the step definition, and since we came to the assertion point, I mean, is it best practice to add the assertions and business logic on the step definition, or we should have the separate page class with the appropriate method, and we just need to call the method from the step definition, or we are okay to even write the business logic in the step definition as well? What is the best practice?
I personally feel that we need to put all those business logics in the page objects actually, because down the line, if there is going to be a change, right? See, all you need to do is, like, for each and every page or for each and every module, you will be having a step definitions class, which is great. But if you are going to reuse that particular component in different step definitions, right? If there is going to be a change, and if you're putting it in your step definition, you need to go and change in all the step definitions, right? But I would personally suggest you to use page objects in this case, and you can just change it over there and it reflects automatically in your step definitions. So just use page objects and see. And if you're not able to use page objects, and if the particular page is common across all your scenarios, create another page class, call it as a common page or something, and then put it over there and make use it in the step definition. So ideally, try to reduce all those technical complications or UI related complications in your step definitions. Try not to do that at all. Put everything in your page objects, where you can just go and change only in page objects, and it reflects in your step definitions.
Perfect.
So basically, Giridhar, there are situations wherein to answer Shashank, in these cases we can also, when you feel that there are many validations and you feel that those should not be a part of your page objects, so in that case we also tend to create feature wise helper classes as well. So like those classes can be there, and wherein you can place those methods which you feel that those will be only specific to the test cases and will not be required anywhere else.
Right. You can
You must be referring utility kind of classes, right?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Fujit. Apart from this, Giridhar, I mean, we have gone through with the scenario outline approach where we are just passing the test data from there. What is the best approach? I mean, should we, because I personally feel like what you have shown is the best practice. And in fact, I'm also using the same way for using the scenario outline and parameterization of the test data from here in the form of examples only. But somewhat, I mean, I have noted like there is a table or there is another, I mean, by using the Excel or Excel utility or any Apache POI or any other file, or by using the JSON file, we can parameterize the test data. But if we use the other things, then again it is a common thing. What is the specialty for this Cucumber or for this behavior driven or BDD approach? So apart from this examples and the table, what is the best thing what we should be using, or what other things you can recommend?
Right. So I think in number 5, right, which is the latest version, there is a feature called a docstring. I think it is there in 4 as well. There is something called as docstring where you can just put all your JSON as well, JSON related data also there actually. So in your feature file itself, you can put docstring directly with the JSON file format, and then that will be made use in your step definitions directly. So you don't have to, have a separate JSON file separately and then put all your data there and make use it in the step definitions. So that is one way that I can suggest. And one thing what I wanted to tell you guys is try not to use anything external, guys, because when it comes to Cucumber, right, everything should be there as part of your feature file itself. Even the test data that you're going to use, right, try to put it over there itself. The reason is if you're looking into the report or if you're looking into the pickles living documentation down the line, you will exactly know what is the data that has been used. Now, say for example, if you're using a Excel sheet or something like that, you will make use of it in your step definitions or in the page object layer only. You cannot use it in feature file layer where you will not be explicitly given what exactly the test data that has been used. So I would suggest don't use any external, data sources as of now. In the sense, like if you really think you need it, use it. But again, try to put everything in your feature file itself because that is going to be the Bible actually.
Yeah, perfect. I'm doing so. One other thing, when I'm using the same approach, like say you have mentioned the first item, I have, let's say I have a 20 things. I mean, I know as per your recommendation, we should not use the multiple things, but let's say I'm using the multiple test data here in order to pass. I have a search item or I have to multiple ID or something. So all this list will go in a horizontal way. Is there a possibility like we can organize it in a better manner, like a first item, after that the ID, after that the place or the name, something like, because it looks like a few weird things.
Yeah, that is just an example actually. So if you see here, right, you will be able to understand more. So you can just put it in this format as well. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I'm able to see it.
Yeah, if you see here, you can just, if I understood your requirement correctly, you can just put it in a column wise as well, and then put all your data here so that it will be easy for you to recognize. I just gave an example in the particular, slide, but you can add n number of columns as well over here.
Okay.
If suppose I have 300 test data, so how can I handle?
Wow. Sorry, 300 test data or 300 columns of this one?
300 test data, like 300 rows, we can say.
Okay, fine. So in that case, you can also put it in this way. But what I would suggest you is, in that case, put it in a JSON file and call it actually, so that your so that your feature file looks, neat and tidy. But again, if you have, try not to. Okay, yeah, I can get your point because you need to iterate it multiple situations, right? Multiple scenarios. I totally agree with you. Yeah. You can put it in a simple JSON file if you think that is going to help you out.
So in that case, I think Excel is also a good option. So we use Excel
Yeah,
for huge
that's
data.
what it depends on the case. It depends on the case. But if you think you can't do with feature file, then you use data external data sources. What I meant actually.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because usually, like whenever you have at least 10 columns set of data, then it's okay to use in feature file itself. But if data set is not very big, so better to use external source of whether you can use leverage JSON or
Absolutely. Even I faced the situation of having more than hundreds of test data where we need to use that. So I just used a simple JSON file, to capture all the data. So I think you can use in that case actually. So see, again, this is to make sure that your Gherkin looks, tidy. As simple as that actually.
Yeah.
But put it in the comment. Put it in the comment. You remember the comment, feature that we were. Put it in the feature. Yeah. Put it in the comment that what particular thing is all about.
That is a takeaway for me at least. I will need to work on that comment section.
Absolutely, because that is going to be the Bible for you down the line. So even if you are going to be in that project for almost like next 1 or 2 years, right? If you want to see, if you want to just rewind yourself and see what is that you have done till now from that particular scenarios perspective, you will not be able to understand. It will be Greek and Latin for you, even though it is written in simple English language. So try to write all the comments wherever it is applicable.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
If there any other documentation that we can generate by the feature file itself, if we are putting the comment like by using the Java, we can generate the Java doc, right? So is there anything we can leverage?
I'm not very sure about it because I personally use Pickles. I'm using it for almost 4 years now. I haven't explored it because it gives me what I want. So sorry, I couldn't help you with that.
That's okay, but typically interesting. We'll definitely explore it. Thank you so much, Giridhar. I got the answer of all my questions. One last thing. Sorry to hold you again. You just felt like about the one meeting where business analyst will call to everybody and will discuss about the requirement, right? And then the feature file will get written over there on that call itself. So who is gonna, especially right, this is something like business analyst is the one who is gonna write this all Gherkin language, right?
Right.
And what is the meeting name you have? Call it out.
Three Amigos session. If you see on the right hand side, Three Amigos.
Oh, okay.
So not only, and one more thing I just wanted to tell, it is not only restricted only to 3 people, but it can be of any stakeholders who are related to that particular feature. So it can be UX designer as well. It can be a product owner himself as well. So if you think there is going to be some other data analyst or someone, they can just pull everyone. But it's not restricted only to 3 people, guys.
All right. I'm done. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
No worries.
So Giridhar, Soumya here.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I just want to, instead of pickle, what you were saying at the time, we can also combine with Zephyr. If someone has that version of Zephyr, using Zephyr, and with new Zephyr, we can use that. We can write when we are writing our test cases, we can write the steps over there, and that can be reviewed by the business analyst, and that can be pushed to the Git, and we can call that, and BDD file will be maintained by the manual QA, and it will also been verified by the stakeholders with the new version of Zephyr. That is well and good.
Definitely, yes. You can make use of that as well. No worries at all. Definitely,
if you
yes.
Are
but
Zephyr.
Yeah, Zephyr is also okay. But ultimate aim is try to make sure that all your scenarios are located in one place where anyone can access it. As simple as that, actually.
Yeah, that's a really cool. I also like the pickle one because Zephyr is paid, and you said pickle is free. It's free, we can use that. And one more thing also, we can use up the BDD advanced report over here as well. That is quite good. The pie charts and all those things what we see in the BDD advanced report. That is really cool. Yeah, I just found that.
Yeah, can see ultimate goal is living documentation. So it can be of any
Yeah.
tools. End of the day, we should have it.
Yes, I really love the way which you have like Java doc, similar sort of thing which you have maintained. You have written all your scenarios in the prerequisite steps for the means you can relate in the future. That's really cool one. Just love the way you have written. Yeah, that's all.
Definitely yes. Because see, if you take Java doc, right? If I'm right, it is specific to of course, it's a best practice to use that as well. If I'm right, Java doc, we are just using it for all the technical methods and everything what we have as part of the second and third layer of our BDD framework. So say for example, the step definitions or the page objects is what we are trying to focus from the Java doc. But again, from our just requirements perspective, I think these kind of living documentation can also be very, very useful for us.
And one more thing and last thing, I have seen most of these cases, people used to write when and then multiple end, given and multiple end, and then and multiple end. What do you think on that? How many end we can write? And this I didn't find any solution on that.
All right, so I'll just show you that. So this is the golden rules that I was talking about actually. There should be not more than 2 ands. Though you have n number of steps in your scenario, right? What you need to do is put everything in your step definitions or page objects in your second and third layer of your test automation framework. Try not to put it within your Gherkins itself, so that your Gherkins will be very clear and it will be talking only from the DSL perspective or the behavior perspective and not from the test step perspective. So to answer your question, try to put all those and statements, like I'm very sure that all those and will be and steps will be like different test steps. You can put everything in your step definitions or in the page object layer directly.
Yeah. But this is we must see in our industry. People used to write lots of and because they cannot write.
Just one way of, it's something like I really don't prefer. In fact, I've seen many people using that one, and I've made them to rewrite it with all these 3 golden as well. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Cool. No worries. Cheers.
Yes.
Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, so one last question from my side. So basically, would you prefer to check in your Gherkins in Bitbucket's source code, or like whether like maintaining Gherkins in Jira is the effective process? So because right now what we are doing currently, we do not check in any feature files in our Bitbucket source code. So we have created a like a Jira implementation, and we fetch the source code and we download in our CI/CD pipeline. There but still, like as I said, I need to like figure out this pickle. But maintaining the Gherkins, we are still struggling. Kind of we are around like 2 years down the line in our project, but sometimes, as Soumya said, like you don't have that much of time while reviewing the PRs. Like you go back to the persons because there are individual contributors. You can't go back all the times, like to see what exactly given then when he has written. So there is something. Can we do something here, like automatic stuff, check in like source code, like what exactly the best practice which you think?
Ideally, what I have seen is actually what you're telling is quite new to me. To be honest with you, each and everything that is there as part of your automation framework, right? Whether your feature files and everything should be reposited in your Git. The reason is like that's how we will be integrating it with our CI/CD pipeline, where we will be executing it. First thing. Second thing is, to answer your question about having that problem of reusable steps and everything, right? What I would personally suggest you is whoever is going to write this particular scenario, ask them to try to reuse all these step definitions at least that are there as part of your part of your framework. In Cucumber 5, there is something called as there is something called as reusable steps, which means that you can align one function to different types of steps. So say for example, some people might be comfortable saying that given I'm a valid customer, given I log in with valid credentials, so both are doing the one and the same thing, right? If I understood you correctly, how are we going to eradicate these kind of issues, right? So try people are writing it in different statements, that's fine, no worries, but make sure those statements are aligned to one particular function that is there as part of your step definition, because that is very, very important. People can write it in different way. End of the day, that is going to do only the same thing. What objective is only one thing, right? Try to map it to the same method.
Yeah, but that is kind of like we can have a we have to live with this trade-off.
And not really required actually. Now, say for example, if your testers are going to write that, right? If your testers are going to write it, ask them to pull this particular. That's why I'm telling you, push the feature file as well to the Git. Ask them to pull it, and when they're trying to write the next scenario, right? So say for example like this, they can just try to see whether they are going to reuse the same step or they are going to duplicate it. So say for example, if you give given and control space, in Eclipse, Cucumber will be able to tell you what are all the feature steps that are available as part of the entire framework directly. Not only specific to this particular feature file, but too specific to the entire framework, so that they will be able to reuse it here actually.
Yeah, that's what yeah, that makes sense. I usually use IntelliJ IDEA, so
yeah, you can use it.
Yeah.
It's like tomatoes and apples. That's it. So
correct. Usually like yeah. So Eclipse I left a few years back.
Right. No, I started using IntelliJ recently, most recently for the past 1 or 2 weeks only I'm using it. Since then I was using only Eclipse. So whenever I take sessions, I'll be talking from a JavaScript perspective or something. So last time when I was taking a session in Amod's forum, someone told that many people are using Eclipse. So next time when you're doing it, do it with Eclipse.
Correct. Yeah, that doesn't make difference. All our ID, whatever you are feel comfortable, we can just
absolutely. But guys, I just wanted to insist one more thing. Please don't restrict yourself only to one technology. Try to learn multiple technologies like JavaScript, because that is going to be the future for sure. Okay, though Java is being used across multiple organizations now, down the line when people start adapting the JavaScript way of doing the modern web applications, eventually you should also start using JavaScript over there. So try not to restrict yourself only to Java. Try to learn as much as possible, like C#, PHP, JavaScript, and multiple frameworks like WebIO, Cypress. Learn as much as possible, because testing is the only place where we have privilege of learning multiple tools and multiple languages. So make use of it now itself, actually.
Yeah, but I would say, like as I always say previously as well, like one person, whenever you have command on one particular language, so you can easily relate to other languages. But if you become jack of all trades, that will be kind of a difficult situation for you in longer run. But once you have a good command on any particular language, then you can easily switch to it. Just a syntax, like doesn't matter whether you are working on Python or JavaScript or Java. Yeah, unless you feel comfortable in one language, then I would say you just spend more time on just to explore that particular language, and then you can start exploring other stuffs.
Absolutely yes, because end of the day the logic remains the same. All you need to know is how to write logic. As simple as that.
Correct.
So syntax might differ, that's it. So end of the day, it's the logic that matters a lot for us. Yeah. Cool. Any other question?
Giridhar, on top of Ankur's question, so like in JavaScript, we mostly use linting. So because of if you violate some of the, it will not give you the commit your code if the linting doesn't pass. If you implement linting properly over there, means when you compile, and can you do some similar sort of things over here for this, or is there anything developed? We don't know. We might not have aware of such things. So if you not follow the best practices, it will not give you that. You will not able to commit your code to Git in that case using Cucumber.
Yeah. So from Cucumber's perspective, I don't think so anything that is specific to that particular, Cucumber as such. But again, you can write your own rules, right, in Lint, or you can just use SonarQube or something.
Yeah, that's what I was coming. Yeah.
You can write your own
in
rules.
SonarQube, we can implement the rules which we want, whatever the basic set of stuff one person has to follow in Gherkins. Yeah, so that's what we have done in our project. Like that PR will not get approved or even not get build green. So until unless your person will follow that particular set of skeleton.
I think those kind of tools will be very, very useful actually. Where you can.
So that will be like capture as code smell.
Absolutely. See, what we need to understand. One-time effort actually. Just put all your thought process and writing the rules, and that will take care for ages actually for us. So yeah.
Because I'm currently not using Cucumber. Earlier I have not integrated such anything such with Cucumber and Java. That's why in Java earlier when we are using Java test engine, we have implemented SonarQubes. But I was not aware. We can also check with Cucumber and SonarQube, so we can integrate. I was not aware of the things.
Okay, and all you need to do is write rules. That's it, actually. At least to my knowledge, write rules. One more thing I wanted to tell you guys is, like, if you think Cucumber is going to, or this particular BDD way of writing your acceptance tests is going to be useful for you and your team, please adapt Cucumber. Else, please don't use Cucumber at all. So if you think, I've seen many people writing for the namesake, all those kind of, given when and thens, just for namesake to tell that we have BDD in place. Plus, in that case, please don't use it. Please try to use it with TestNG or JUnit, a simple way of writing your test cases. If you really think that it's going to be a collaborative process and then it's going to give real benefit to you, please use Cucumber, or please use this way of writing your acceptance tests. Else, please just try to use JUnit or TestNG way of writing test cases. I just wanted to tell that as well.
Yeah, that's important stuff actually.
Yeah, because without
until all these stakeholders are really effective in this process, this will become a very hard to maintain because initially everyone feels like they can collaborate, but down the line people really don't have time to do reviews. So every stakeholders needs to be reviewed. We have to quarterly reviews of our Gherkins by our product managers and our BAs. So that's what we feel like we are in safe hands. But I have used to work in projects like where initially BAs and product managers will be very excited, but after 6 months they don't even know what's exactly happening. so they give up, and it's completely kind of a put gun will come on the tester's shoulder.
Right, that is the biggest problem actually. So that is why I'm telling you, if it's going to really benefit you, please go with this approach. Else, convince your customer or convince your manager saying that we are happy with having a simple JUnit or TestNG, we can make use of it. So be very clear about it actually. Any other questions, guys? Suggestions, comments, feedback? I think it was not like a bedtime story, right?
Huh? Come again?
I think it was not like a bedtime story, right?
No. It was a very nice interactive session, I would say. And completely, I have learned 2 takeaways to implement in my project. So I think I will gonna explore on Monday and definitely share the feedback about Pickle. So
definitely, that's the main point of having a session. We don't want to go through all the slides and tell people to start doing it. We want this to be more interactive. We can give our personal. That's the main objective actually. Yeah.
Guys, I think we are running out of time, but I have a question. If you can please take it.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Been practicing Cucumber from quite some time. And I have seen people who are, I mean, in my new project, I have seen people who are writing tens of lines of code as like a feature file without any other scenario, just one scenario and like 50 lines of steps. It's hard to convince them and tell them that that's not the right way to use Cucumber. I have suggested them to go and read about it. The person who have created, read blogs from him, and for what purpose we should use this. Do you have a cut point about number one? Do we use Cucumber for API testing? As in general, is it a good idea to use Cucumber for API testing? And number two, why is it not good to write tens of lines of code inside one file within just one scenario?
Cool. So to answer your first question about the APIs, right? If you go to Cucumber's website, they themselves would have told that Cucumber is not an API testing tool. Actually, you're not supposed to.
Exactly.
Yeah, you cannot. There is no point. At least if you go to my blog, I have written a article about why I personally don't use Cucumber for API testing. Actually, because end of the day, it's a back-end application and it doesn't speak anything from the business perspective. It talks directly from the technical perspective on what is the payload I'm giving and what is the response I'm getting. As simple as that, right? But again, if you really wanted to use a BDD way of writing, API tests, try to use Rest Assured. So Rest Assured is one of the best tools that is available, which you can write your direct functions within, in a BDD format directly in a given when and then format itself, without having English statements like this, without having a feature file layer directly. That is one good option. You think if you want to use BDD, but I personally don't use Cucumber for API testing. First point. To answer your second question, even I have faced it personally when trying to convince people of not writing at least for you 50 lines. I've seen people writing 150 lines. So it's very tedious for us to convince them. What we need to do is like very simple. Just write another feature file and then start reducing all those 50 lines of 50 lines into your step definitions. Put it within your step definitions and tell them that, guys, this particular scenario, what you have written for 50 steps, I've written within 3 to 5 lines. But again, all your functionalities on what you have written for each and every step, I have covered it in the step definition layer or the page object layer. So that is how I convinced people, saying that, hey, this is what you're doing, but I'm just writing it in the DSL language, domain specific language, which does exactly the same thing what you have written it for 50 lines, which is not looking nice, which is not a tidy way of writing the Gherkins. So this is how I convinced personally people, saying that this is how we need to do. And some people got convinced, but some people didn't. But still, people are trying to use that one. So we can't, do, or what we need to do is we need to educate them with the right best practices.
Perfect. Yeah, I thought about something similar, but I realized that it will take some time if I try to show them that this needs to be done in a better way. I have to take away from my time and do their work, compress the file into fewer lines, understand what they have written. So I just thought, is there a better way that I can? But yes, I can guide them to go through some of the blogs.
That's what I told in the beginning itself, right? It's a mindset.
Correct mindset of people. Yeah, even I have the similar lines of questions.
There's one more question I was very curious about is there are people who come up with this concept of their own framework, a custom framework, and which is very good project wise. But when they try to extend this and become obsessed with everyone around my team should use this framework, and succeeded with few teams convincing it. But when it comes to a crux of the actual objective of that framework, and when it does not fit with other objective of other teams, like an API testing merged into the same framework where UI automation has been, it is built for UI automation, but they want to plug in another team with this framework, and other team has only API automation. Then people start convincing that use BDD for API, writing API thing as well. Now here, have you ever seen jacking in Rest Assured into same framework with Cucumber? And it looks like a mess, sounds like a mess. Is it any possible way of dealing it with properly?
See, if you ask me what I personally, believe, right, at least with my experience, what I have seen is everything should be separate entity. Have a separate UI framework, have a separate API framework actually. So
Yeah,
try not.
that's best to keep it simple. Yeah.
See, the reason is only one simple thing. Okay, it's again like it's apples and oranges. Okay, try not to put in one place, though it comes under the same category of fruit. The reason is both are having different taste altogether, right? So I would say that have UI test cases separately and API test cases separately. So that when a team is going to use only make use of only API tests, and if their scope is restricted only to API, let them use that particular framework and put all those test cases into that one. Okay. So that is something that I personally, suggest you guys. So I totally agree with you. I know where you're coming from. There are dedicated only for backend systems, right? So they don't care about UI tests, right? So in that case, try to put it as a separate framework altogether and put everything in a separate entity.
That sounds more doable and practical approach. But then, yeah, like I said, my framework, people should use it. It's difficult.
Yeah, even yesterday, even I came across with such a requirement, like wherein there were few folks who came with like they want to integrate the API framework with the UI framework, and the reason being for that is like they have to perform a lot of prerequisite steps before launching the UI, and they want API will be taking care of those, and then the control should pass to the UI for the UI specific things. So how do we take this? Like in that case, do we really have to, go ahead and merge the API with the UI, or even the prerequisites should be taken care by the UI itself?
Okay.
So like guys,
sorry, Ankuri.
So I kind of a bit have different opinion here. Not sure, because I had been following Angie, and Angie has given a good conference talk on this topic as well, and she has written one blog post, and we kind of have leveraging this stuff in our current project. So like agenda here is like why to launch a particular UI again and again, which we can leverage with the API in much faster and better way. Yeah, I agree kind of with Akshat's comment, like it might be difficult to maintain in initial days, but as we have developed this in our current project, like we are whenever we need to do some prerequisite steps, so we do not go in the UI, we just call the APIs and do all these stuff with rest assured post methods, the data setup, all these things, and then particular page we just launch that page in the UI, and we just verify all set of tests on that UI, and then again if we want to log out, we just again that close that set of test case there, and then again we'll start from the API itself. So I think that there is a good blog post if you guys want to have a look by MG.
I just want to add here. Yeah, I just want to add here what Ankur said. My question specific was when two testing opportunities are merged together, an API testing which is separate and a UI testing. But the question what somebody asked a few minutes back, it was like we do wherever it's a prerequisite and we can do it over API and it's not part of actual test. We usually go by using APIs to create those prerequisite things. If there is anything which we avoid dealing with that we can avoid dealing with in UI inside our test, we just do such calls on API because it give immense time saving opportunity for us. So of course you can use APIs as part of your UI testing frameworks because it gives you more flexibility and less flaky interactions with the UI, and it's a good idea. But when it comes to merge two different testing strategies, one API testing, another UI testing into one framework, then it becomes whole lot of mix and match, like Giridhar said, I'm sorry, oranges and apples in the same basket. Then it doesn't look good.
That doesn't.
Okay. So what I see is API testing in two different ways. One is testing that particular API, and the second one is consuming that particular API. Okay. Now, what I understood from your point is, when you are trying to run a prerequisite as an API for that particular UI test, right? So say, for example, creating an account, right? So before I log in into that particular account, I need to create an account. So I'm just consuming that particular API to create an account. So in that case, we can integrate it with UI. We can integrate it with UI framework itself. But again, testing that particular API with multiple combinations or multiple, payloads or something like that, it has to be separate framework altogether. You got my point?
In that case, I think JMeter and loader are coming to the picture. Yeah. So
right.
If you segregate it quite beautifully, like two ways we can leverage the APIs. Yeah.
Right.
That
API
makes
test.
total sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Giridhar what said is like consuming and testing are two different aspects, and that's what it is. Like in the API, in the UI we are consuming the API, and the API testing is separate, wherein we are testing that API.
With multiple combinations, actually.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, have it as a separate framework in that case. But again, if you think I'm going to consume that, please go ahead and use it in your UI itself. As simple as that.
I think this. This consuming of API will help. Like I can answer them like right now that okay, we are consuming an API. So this word was something which impacted a lot. Yeah.
Right. I'm glad you got some point actually. Any other questions, folks? But anyways, no worries. If you have any queries, I'm there for you always. You can. I'm always active in LinkedIn, but not very active in Twitter. But again, just ping me in LinkedIn if you want anything. I can definitely, answer you instantly or probably like in a couple of minutes actually for you. Yeah.
I'm really very glad to actually see you like this and talk to you. We have been hearing you from a long time, but it really feels amazing to see you as a person, and it feels like you are genuine, and I'm really happy to see you here. Thank you very much.
That means a lot to me. Thank you so much for your kind words.
True word. Thanks, Peter, and thanks Ankur for bringing it this platform.
Yeah, that's what it was an excellent session and really asking in chats as well. So we'll definitely put so much of efforts in free stuff and
people like Angie and industry leaders, world-class instructors who are giving their courses, and I'm very sure that even I have taken most of the courses, and I think it is very informative as well. At least people who don't know what exactly it is, they can at least kickstart with that so that they can just try to projects. In fact,
yeah. I think that makes total.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, again, thanks everyone. Thanks, Giridhar.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Giridhar. Thanks, Ankur.
Bye.